Every single relationship pattern you have was programmed into you before you were old enough to choose, and you've been running that program ever since, without knowing it. The reason you keep ending up in the same exhausting dynamics, different person, same feeling, it's not bad luck, it's not bad caste. There's actually a psychological reason this keeps happening, and once you understand it, a lot of things about your love life are going to start making a lot more sense. Here's the thing that nobody tells you. You didn't choose the wrong people. You were led to them by something running quietly in the background of every relationship you've ever had. We spend so much time asking, why do I keep ending up here? Same arguments, different face, same particular kind of lonely. And we assume the answer is something embarrassing, bad judgment, a broken picker, some fundamental flaw in the way we love. But honestly, that framing is completely wrong. The patterns you carry in your relationships aren't proof that something is wrong with you. They're proof that something happened to you. And there is a massive difference between those two things. The way you chase, the way you withdraw, the way you anxiously stare at your phone waiting for a reply that should have come an hour ago, that was learned, which means it can be unlearned. But first, you have to understand where it came from. So there's this framework in psychology, and I was genuinely kind of floored when I first came across it, called attachment theory. The core idea is actually pretty simple. The way people responded to you as a child, whether your needs were met consistently, inconsistently, or honestly not at all, created a kind of internal template, a blueprint for what love is supposed to feel like, what safety feels like, what you unconsciously expect from the people closest to you. And you've been using that blueprint ever since, mostly without realizing it. Researchers have mapped out 4 main attachment styles: secure, anxious, avoidant, and fearful avoidant. And here's the part that might sting a little. Most people aren't securely attached, not because they're broken, but because secure attachment requires a really specific kind of consistent, attuned caregiving that a lot of us just didn't get. And that's not me throwing your parents under the bus. To be fair, most of them were just running their own unexamined blueprints, passed down from their parents and their parents before that. It goes deep. But here's where it gets really interesting. Research shows we don't just passively fall into relationships, we are unconsciously drawn toward the emotional temperature we grew up in. Familiarity feels like safety to the brain, even when the situation is anything but safe. So if chaos felt like home growing up, you'll mistake chaos for passion. If emotional unavailability felt normal, you'll find someone pulling away interesting rather than reading it as the red flag it actually is. Crazy, right? This isn't weakness. This is just neurology doing what neurology does. Okay, so let's actually get into the styles, starting with anxious attachment, because I think it's the most misunderstood one by far. If you're anxiously attached, you love deeply. You feel everything intensely. You're incredibly attuned to the emotional states of people around you. You notice the slight shift in tone in a text message. You catch micro-expressions people don't even know they're making. And everyone around you calls it being too sensitive, like it's a character flaw. It's not. That sensitivity developed because at some point in your life, you had to track someone else's emotional state in order to feel safe. Think about someone like Daniel. Growing up, his mom was loving but wildly inconsistent, warm and present one day, completely withdrawn the next. So little Daniel became an emotional detective, always reading the room, always trying to predict when the warmth was coming and when it was about to disappear. By the time he was an adult, that hypervigilance was just how he operated. In relationships, he became what people called too much, texting too often, needing constant reassurance, completely spiraling if someone took 3 hours to reply. And he hated himself for it. But here's what Daniel didn't know. He wasn't being too much. He was responding to a threat his nervous system genuinely believed was real. The fix isn't to feel less. It's to build enough self-trust that you don't need constant reassurance from someone else to confirm you're okay. And that starts with one question. Is this actually happening right now, or is this just an old feeling wearing new clothes? Then there's avoidant attachment. And if this one's you, I want to say this directly. You are not cold. You are not incapable of love. You are someone who learned really early that needing people was risky, that reaching for closeness led to rejection or overwhelm, or both. So you got incredibly good at not needing. You became self-sufficient in ways that genuinely impress people. You built a rich inner world. You're probably one of the most capable, high-functioning people in your circle. But when a relationship starts getting close, something in you quietly starts looking for the exit. And here's the part that surprised me when I found this out. Research indicates that avoidantly attached people don't actually feel less. They suppress the expression of their feelings because they learned that showing those feelings wasn't safe. So the distance isn't a lack of love, it's a form of protection that made complete sense once. It just hasn't been updated since. I think about a woman named Sarah. She was always the one to end things first, not because she didn't care. Honestly, she cared desperately. But the moment someone got too close, she'd start cataloging every flaw, every incompatibility, any reason at all to back away before she could be the one who got hurt. It took her a long time to see the pattern, even longer to understand where it came from. But the moment she did, everything became softer. If this is you, the work isn't about forcing yourself into vulnerability before you're ready. It's smaller than that. It's staying in the uncomfortable conversation 1 minute longer than you normally would, letting someone in just slightly, and noticing that the world doesn't end. Now, here's where it gets really complicated, and honestly, this might be the most important thing in this entire video. Psychology shows that anxious and avoidant types are magnetically drawn to each other, like pulled together by some invisible force that makes zero logical sense until you understand why. The anxious person feels something familiar in the avoidant's distance. It mirrors the inconsistency they grew up with. The avoidant feels something familiar in the anxious's intensity. It recreates a dynamic they know how to manage from behind a wall. So they come together, and they create the most common, most exhausting relationship dynamic on the planet. One person chasing, one person withdrawing. Both people suffering, neither person entirely understanding why. I know what you're thinking. So what, we're just doomed? No, this is not destiny. This is just two blueprints meeting, and blueprints can be redrawn. There's one more style I want to touch on, the fearful avoidant, sometimes called disorganized attachment. And if you've ever felt like you desperately want closeness while simultaneously being terrified of it, like you're being pulled toward someone and pushed away from them at the exact same time by forces you can't name, this might be the most accurate description of your experience. Research suggests this style often develops when the caregiver was both a source of comfort and a source of fear. So the nervous system got two completely contradictory messages about what love is supposed to feel like. And that contradiction doesn't just disappear when you grow up. It shows up in the push-pull, the hot and cold, the relationships that feel like emotional whiplash. If this resonates, I want to say this gently. This is one of the most complex patterns to carry. But complexity is not permanence. You are not too complicated to heal. So what do you actually do with all of this? Because understanding your attachment style is one thing. Changing the pattern is something else. Here's what both research and real human experience keep pointing to. The most powerful shift doesn't happen when you find the right person. It happens when you become a more secure base for yourself. Psychologists actually have a name for this. They call it becoming earned secure. And it's exactly what it sounds like. Security you build, not security you were just handed. It happens through self-awareness, through relationships where you slowly, imperfectly, practice new patterns, and often through therapy, where someone consistently shows up for you in ways your nervous system gradually learns to trust. It also happens through honesty, just noticing when you're chasing, noticing when you're withdrawing, not beating yourself up about it, just seeing it for what it is, an old response to an old situation, and then make the tiniest possible different choice. because the relationship you actually want is on the other side of a blueprint you're now finally starting to read. If any of this hit home for you, if you recognized yourself somewhere in this video and something shifted, even a little, subscribe, because this channel exists for exactly this: the psychology of who you are, how you connect, and what it actually looks like to grow. We'll see you in the next one.